Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and this is probably going to be a two-part video analysing and talking through the upcoming two games for Chelsea. This is probably two of the biggest games of this season, or you could put them the biggest games of this season. Of course, we've got tomorrow night away at PSG, the first leg of our Champions League tie against them, and then of course on Sunday you've got the game at home to Manchester City in the fifth round of the FA Cup. In this part, I'm going to talk through both ties and the significance of both of them in the season, basically. So starting off with PSG, the game tomorrow night. It's the first of a two-legged tie. We've got a lot of history of PSG in recent years in this competition. Of course, we played them in the 13-14 season where Demba Ba's goal put us through in the dying minutes of that game. A crazy moment, I'm sure, one of the best moments in his career. Last year, more of a sour kind of memory of that game, being at that game, the 2-2 at home, just a bad night. They had Ibrahimovic sent off, but still I thought our tactics were all wrong that night, and eventually David Luiz came back to haunt us, and Thiago Silva scored basically their winner and it ended 2-2. They went through on away goals, and going into round 3, I feel that we've got a good chance of beating PSG. I really do. I thought last year, I know there's extremely difficult circumstances considering the way we've played this season. I still feel we've got a good chance of beating them. We've got good players. I think on Saturday that kind of proved that, and at points of this season we know we have good players. They just haven't been performing, and I think I've said that a lot. But I think that overall, looking at the game in itself, I feel we've got to go in there tomorrow night, still be in the tie by the second leg. But I think the second leg is more, in a lot of ways, I kind of look at that more significantly. But in the second leg, I thought last year where we got it so wrong was that we seemed to stand off PSG. We weren't good enough going forward. We didn't attack them enough, and eventually we got punished for it. And that's the problem. I think in this tie, if we are in a position where we can win, if it's like a 1-1, even if we're losing 2-1, God, like 2 years ago, we were losing 3-1 and still came through. We've got to be more attacking. We've got to take the emphasis to PSG. I'm not saying go all-out attack, because PSG, as we know, have very, very good players. Cavani, Ibrahimovic, Di Maria, just to mention a few. But at the same time, I still feel we've got good enough players by ourselves that we can beat this side. I think we can, and especially with the Stamford Bridge crowd on Champions League nights, which was very flat last year against PSG. This year, if the crowd are up, if we're good enough, I think we can turn over PSG. Then moving over to the game against Manchester City, which is a very different situation. Simply because I think we've got a really good chance of winning the FA Cup this season. I've said that. I think in my predictions for this year in football, I predicted that Chelsea would win the FA Cup simply because Gus Hiddink's experience with the cup, he takes it very seriously. And the fact is, I think we've got a decent chance of winning it. And since the turn of the year, we've been unbeaten, which I think is a good record in itself. I know we've had a lot of draws within there, but I think we can use this competition as a way to get some joy out of this season. And Manchester City going into this game, looking at their form in the league. Also, the fact is, it's been strongly reported that Manchester City, I think it's a bit too strong to say, are going to throw away this game, but they're not going to put out their full strength side, considering they've got Dynamo Kiev in the Champions League as well. They've got the League Cup final against Liverpool the week after at Wembley. They obviously are going to probably put FA in the FA Cup, third in that list. I still expect to see Sterling, Aguero, David Silva, the usual suspects within their team, but it definitely looks like they will play younger players. But then as well, you look at Iheanacho, who's been kind of broken into that team and is scoring goals in the FA Cup, so he as well is a threat in himself. So I don't expect them to put out a weak side, but I definitely know from looking at reports from Manchester, they kind of are looking at this game as a bit of a write-off. They want it done within one game, whether they're going to win or lose. So we've got a real good chance of going in there and turning over Manchester City and having a massive win, which gets us through to the quarterfinals. And once we get into the quarterfinals, we're at the business end. And I think we've really got a good chance with the squad we have, which still has quality within it, to go on and win the FA Cup. So guys, in the comments below, let me know your opinions on these two games. What do you think we've got a better chance of winning? Also, what are your feelings going into these games? What are your confidence like? Do you feel we're underdogs in both games? Do you think we've got a better chance in one game rather than the other? Do you think we can beat PSG? And do you think we can win the FA Cup? In part 2, I'm going to be discussing which one takes more priority over the other and which one we have the best chance of winning. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again for another video and another edition on my Team Selector, here to predict the Chelsea starting 11 for the game tomorrow night in Paris against PSG in the Champions League first leg of our tie in the round of